If you're over 60, there's one everyday movement that might appear safe, maybe even beneficial, but it could silently increase your risk of a stroke overnight. No discomfort, no early signs, no second chances. You could fall asleep feeling perfectly fine and wake up unable to speak, lift an arm, or recognize your own loved ones. As a neurologist with over 3 decades of experience treating stroke patients, I've seen the full range of causes, but the ones that linger in my memory the most aren't from smoking or unhealthy diets. They come from something far more surprising: ordinary exercises. The same gentle movements and age-friendly routines that are often recommended can, under the wrong conditions, strain your blood vessels, raise your blood pressure, and trigger blood clots that travel to your brain while you sleep. Today, I want to walk you through 9 widely practiced exercises that may be putting your brain in danger, even if you feel strong, even if you're following expert advice. Because at this phase of life, what used to help you could now be doing more harm than good. Stay with me. What you're about to learn could be the most important health advice you receive this year. It might even save your life. And before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to do that and tap the bell icon so you never miss a brain and body health tip right here on HealthWise After 60. If you find this video helpful, comment with a 1. If not, drop a 0 and tell me how I can make this content better for you. 1. Toe touches and forward bends. The hidden blood pressure drop. It looks completely harmless. Bending over to stretch your hamstrings, reaching for your toes before bed, or grabbing something off the floor. For years, maybe decades, you've done this movement without giving it a second thought. But what if I told you that this simple, familiar action, done at the wrong time or with an aging body, could silently push your brain toward a stroke? In my years treating older adults, I've seen this scenario play out more often than most would expect. A small, unnoticed dip in blood pressure, triggered by bending forward, becomes the first step in a dangerous cascade. While younger bodies adjust easily to these posture changes, the story changes after age 60. The pressure sensors in your arteries, your baroreceptors, begin to dull, reacting more slowly to shifts in position. So when you bend down too fast, blood flows away from your brain, and your system doesn't kick in fast enough to redirect it. You might feel slightly dizzy. You might feel nothing at all, but something much more serious could be happening silently inside. Repetitive movements like toe touches or forward bends can repeatedly deprive your brain of oxygen-rich blood. While it may not cause you to faint, this frequent drop sets the stage for thicker blood, slower circulation, and, in some cases, dangerous clot formation. These clots, small but potent, can lodge deep in the brain's arteries. The result? Impaired speech, sudden vision issues, loss of balance, or, in severe cases, lifelong paralysis. I'll never forget a patient named Mr. Raymond Ellis, age 74, a retired history teacher from Nebraska. Raymond took pride in his morning stretching routine. Each day after waking, he stood tall and touched his toes 5 or 6 times, something he'd done faithfully since childhood. He said it helped him feel alive and limber. But one morning after stretching, he noticed a wave of dizziness, brief but odd. He ignored it. A few hours later, while pulling weeds in his backyard, he collapsed. He remained awake but couldn't move his right side. At the hospital, imaging confirmed a small ischemic stroke. A clot had lodged in the brain's motor center. His lab work revealed dehydration and a blood pressure drop earlier that morning. It all traced back to those toe touches. His vascular system couldn't adapt fast enough. His blood flow slowed and a clot formed, without warning or pain. Raymond later regained mobility with the help of a cane, but his right hand never returned to full strength. I remember him telling me with mist in his eyes, "I really believe stretching was helping me. I had no idea it was hurting me." This is the message too few seniors ever hear. It's not about avoiding movement altogether. It's about knowing what your body, now older and more delicate, should no longer be doing the same way. What once felt helpful at 40 could be risky at 70, especially if you're on blood pressure medications or wake up mildly dehydrated, as many older adults do. If you need to reach down, take your time. Rise gradually. Focus on breathing steadily. If you're dressing or putting on shoes, Use a seated position rather than bending while standing. And if you ever feel dizzy during one of these motions, don't brush it off. That's your brain sending a subtle distress signal. Because here's the truth. The most dangerous stroke isn't the dramatic sudden one. It's the slow building kind, triggered by repetitive, familiar movements done too quickly, too often, and with a body that's no longer 30. And if a simple stretch like this can tip your brain into crisis, what do you think happens with yoga poses that shift blood pressure directly into your head? You won't believe what's coming next. 2. Inverted yoga poses. Silent pressure. Surge. For many older adults, yoga represents peaceful aging, a way to stay flexible, breathe deeply, and find calm in a busy world. You've likely seen it offered at community centers. Seniors seated in rows, guided by a gentle voice, moving slowly with soft background music. And for the most part, gentle yoga can truly be a gift. But there's one group of movements that could quietly put your brain in harm's way, and sadly, most seniors are never cautioned about them. I'm referring to inverted positions like legs up the wall, downward dog, or even basic forward folds where the head dips below the level of the heart. Though marketed as relaxing or restorative, these poses can create a sudden, powerful rush of blood toward the brain, a change that can be risky for anyone over 60. When that surge hits aging blood vessels, vessels that may already be stiffened, inflamed, or fragile from years of elevated blood pressure or cholesterol, the strain can cause those vessels to dilate, rupture, or go into spasm. As we grow older, the brain's pressure regulation system, known as cerebral autoregulation, loses its edge. In younger bodies, it adjusts swiftly to changes in posture. But in older adults, even a short time with the head tilted downward can lead to pooling, pressure spikes, and disrupted oxygen delivery. Now add to that a history of high blood pressure, an undiagnosed aneurysm, or medications that affect circulation, and you've got a recipe for serious trouble. It can trigger clot formation in the brain's most delicate zones. One case I'll never forget involved Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a 74-year-old retired art teacher from Oregon. Vibrant, social, and devoted to staying active, she attended a senior yoga class every Tuesday and Thursday. She often said how much she loved the peaceful atmosphere and how youthful it made her feel. But during one class, while lying with her legs up the wall and her head tilted downward, Evelyn felt a sudden, sharp ache behind her eyes. She brushed it off, finished the session, and went home to lie down. Later that night, her daughter discovered her collapse beside the bed, confused, unable to speak. At the hospital, scans revealed a small hemorrhagic stroke at the back of her brain, a rare but serious bleed often caused by a spike in brain pressure. Her blood pressure medications, combined with the inverted posture, had created the perfect storm. Her blood vessels strained. Her pressure surged. A clot formed and ruptured in a part of the brain too sensitive to recover quickly. Evelyn pulled through, but her life was changed. Her vision is permanently blurred on one side, and she now struggles with word recall. Once known for her wit and creativity, she now uses written notes just to remember daily tasks. And the saddest part, it could have been avoided. No one had explained to her that these postures, though branded as safe for seniors, might not be appropriate for someone with her cardiovascular history. The yoga instructor hadn't been trained in age-specific precautions. Like so many others, Evelyn assumed, if it's gentle yoga, it must be safe. But the truth is, age rewrites the rules. The arteries supplying your brain aren't smooth, flexible tubes anymore. They're more like aging garden hoses, easily blocked, cracked, or ruptured with just a little extra pressure. And when blood pools where it shouldn't, or when tight positions slow circulation, your body reacts the only way it knows how. It creates clots to protect you. But those clots, in the wrong place, can take away your speech, your vision, or your independence. So how can you protect yourself? If you enjoy yoga, make sure your instructor is certified to work with older adults, especially those managing heart or neurological conditions. Avoid any posture that lowers your head beneath your heart. Skip inverted poses completely. There are safer seated movements that offer the same benefits, without the risk. And if you ever feel faint, feel pressure behind your eyes, or experience unusual fatigue after class. Take it seriously. Your body isn't exaggerating. It's trying to tell you something's wrong. Because sometimes, especially as we age, what feels soothing isn't actually safe. And if inverted yoga poses can quietly put your brain in jeopardy, just wait until you hear about a seemingly harmless task, something as simple as lifting a bag of groceries, that can spike your blood pressure in an instant and silently tear the lining of your arteries. The next exercise may look ordinary, but it may be triggering a chain reaction that ends with a stroke. 3. Heavy lifting, even grocery bags. Hidden blood pressure surges. There's something admirable about maintaining strength in your later years. Carrying your own groceries, lifting your grandkids, or moving a box of books without asking for assistance. It brings a sense of independence, dignity, and vitality. But what many older adults don't realize is that even these everyday lifting tasks, especially when done while holding your breath or straining, can trigger a rapid spike in blood pressure, creating the ideal conditions for a stroke. You don't need to be at the gym hoisting weights to be at risk. I've seen strokes triggered by something as ordinary as coiling a garden hose, picking up a heavy handbag, or helping carry a laundry basket. It's not the object itself that's dangerous. It's the pressure you build up internally during the effort. This is known as the Valsalva maneuver, a natural reflex where you hold your breath and bear down. It can cause your blood pressure to rise sharply, increasing pressure inside your chest and skull, and disrupting blood flow in critical vessels. In older adults, especially those with narrowed arteries, arterial stiffness, or a history of high blood pressure or diabetes, this sudden spike can cause vessels to rupture or dislodge a clot. That clot can then travel directly to the brain and block vital blood flow. It takes only a few seconds. And you might not notice a thing until the damage is already underway. Let me share the story of Mr. George Pickett, 82, a retired firefighter from Ohio. George was active, self-reliant, and proud of it. He never let anyone carry his groceries, not even his wife. One afternoon, he picked up a box of canned goods from the back of his car, a routine lift. But this time, something went wrong. Halfway through, he grabbed his head and collapsed onto the driveway. At the hospital, doctors discovered he had suffered an ischemic stroke. A clot had become lodged in the middle cerebral artery, one of the brain's main blood highways. A sudden spike in blood pressure from that simple lift had caused plaque in his arteries to dislodge and block the flow of oxygen to his brain. The moment of strength he prided himself on became the moment that changed his life completely. Today, George uses a walker. His mind is sharp, but his speech is slow, and forming full sentences is a daily challenge. This is the kind of silent threat no one talks about. You're encouraged to stay strong, stay active, but no one explains what can happen when your effort exceeds what your body can now safely handle. At this stage of life, your margin for error is smaller. Every breath, every lift, every sudden pressure shift has greater impact on your arteries and your brain. So if you're lifting and notice you're holding your breath, pause. That's your body flashing a warning. If you feel dizzy, tense, or notice pressure in your chest or neck after lifting, don't chalk it up to age or exertion. That could be a stroke in the making. Choose lighter loads. Ask for help when needed. Use carts, rolling bags, or simple tools. Being cautious doesn't diminish your independence. It protects it. And remember, not all strokes come with pain. Sometimes they arrive in total silence until they have taken your speech, your movement, or your future. And if a small box can trigger a stroke, imagine what could happen when your own body betrays you during the most basic act of all, standing up. In the next section, we'll take a look at a movement encouraged in senior programs across the country, one that can silently cut off oxygen to your brain in mere seconds. Chances are you've already done it today without even knowing the risk. 4. Sudden standing exercises. The sit-to-stand stroke trigger. It's one of the most basic movements we make every day, rising from a chair. We do it without thinking, after reading, eating, or answering a phone call. For older adults, it's even a recommended part of balance and strength routines. Try getting up without using your arms, they say. It'll help you stay steady. But here's what no one warns you about. Standing up too fast, especially without support, can quietly set off the very stroke you're trying to prevent. Why? Because as soon as you stand, gravity pulls blood downward, away from your head. In a younger body, the nervous system reacts instantly, tightening blood vessels and boosting heart rate to keep blood flowing to the brain. But once you're past 60, that response slows down. Sometimes it doesn't happen fast enough. This is even more likely if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, take meds like beta blockers or water pills, or wake up slightly dehydrated, which for many older adults is common without even realizing it. When you rise too quickly, your brain may experience a sudden drop in oxygen. If your vessels are already fragile or inflamed, this creates the perfect moment for clot formation. And those clots, if they travel, can block vital brain arteries in seconds. You don't need to lose consciousness. A little wooziness, a moment of fog, that's all it takes. In those few seconds, a stroke may already be underway, quietly and visibly. One patient I remember well is Mrs. Carol Jensen, 79, a retired school principal in Arizona. Energetic and determined, Carol followed her physical therapist's advice to practice sit-to-stand exercises, rising from her kitchen chair repeatedly without using her arms. She was told it would help her balance and lower fall risk. But one morning after a quick set while her husband made coffee, she stood fast and reached for the counter, then hesitated. "I feel off," she said. Within seconds, her right side gave out, and her words became jumbled. At the hospital, imaging revealed a left-sided ischemic stroke. A clot had lodged in the middle cerebral artery, the part of the brain controlling movement and speech. Her tests also showed signs of vascular strain and low hydration that morning. Carol had no idea that an exercise meant to protect her had triggered the event that changed everything. She can now walk with a cane, but speaking and remembering simple words takes effort. A moment that felt routine ended up defining her daily life. And she's not alone. Across the country, hospitals treat strokes that don't come from falls, trauma, or bad habits, but from good intentions paired with a body that needed a slower pace. Because here's the truth, aging changes everything. Your blood vessels react more slowly. Your brain is more sensitive to pressure shifts. What was safe in your 40s might be risky in your 70s, and that's not weakness. It's biology. The real danger is pretending nothing's changed. So here's what matters. Always stand up with care. Use the chair's arms. Move slowly. Pause for a second. Breathe. Give your brain time to adjust before taking your first step. And if you feel lightheaded after standing, that's not just getting older. That's your brain waving a red flag. In this season of life, speed isn't strength, it's risk. And a rushed movement could cost you your clarity, your voice, or even your independence. But if something as routine as standing up can affect your brain, what about walking, the gold standard of senior fitness? Next, we'll explore how a simple walk, especially in warmer weather, can leave your brain dehydrated, your blood sluggish, and your body exposed to stroke risk before the day even begins. 5. Walking in heat or humidity. The dehydration and blood thickening risk. There's something peaceful and grounding about a daily walk. For many seniors, it's a cherished habit. A morning stroll to hear the birds sing, or a quiet afternoon lap around the neighborhood to stretch the legs. Doctors recommend it. Health programs celebrate it. And for good reason, walking can be one of the most powerful ways to support both heart and brain health. But like so many things after 60, the details matter more than ever. And one of the most overlooked dangers I see in older adults is this: heading out for a walk in hot or humid weather without proper hydration or understanding the body's limits. It seems innocent enough. You step outside on a warm summer morning. The sun is rising. The air feels still. But what your skin senses and what your internal systems experience are often very different, especially in an aging body. As we age, the body's natural thirst signal weakens. You may not feel thirsty until you're already running dry. When you layer in diuretics, blood pressure meds, or chronic issues like diabetes or heart disease, your ability to hold onto fluids and stay balanced becomes even more compromised. Here's what happens. You go for your usual walk, you sweat just a little, and you don't replace the loss. Your overall blood volume dips, circulation slows, and the blood that once flowed easily becomes thicker and more sluggish. This process, known medically as hemoconcentration, marks the beginning of a dangerous shift. In an older body with narrowed arteries, that thicker blood becomes a silent threat. The vessels tighten, flow becomes strained, and clots start forming in places you don't want them, especially in the delicate arteries supplying your brain. One patient I'll never forget is Mr. Harold Dunn, 84, a retired mail carrier from Kentucky. Harold was proud of his daily walking habit. Every afternoon after lunch, he took a long stroll through his neighborhood, a tradition he never missed. But in July, when the air turned heavy and temperatures stayed in the 90s, Harold didn't slow down. "I'm used to the heat," he told his wife. But one morning after walking in those intense conditions the day before, Harold woke up disoriented. When he tried to get out of bed, he collapsed. At the hospital, he had slurred speech and couldn't move his right side. Scans showed a left-sided ischemic stroke. The culprit? A clot, likely formed due to dehydration and slowed blood flow overnight. His blood work revealed thickened blood, low hydration, and an electrolyte imbalance. He'd simply been too dry. His walk in the heat, combined with his blood pressure diuretic, had quietly created the perfect storm. Harold survived, but he now walks with assistance. And he still asks the same question. Why didn't anyone tell me walking could be dangerous in the heat? And I always give him the same answer I'll give you. It wasn't the walk that hurt him. It was the setting. The hidden physiological shifts inside his aging body turned something healthy into something harmful. So if you walk regularly, especially during summer, take precautions. Hydrate before and after. Include a small pinch of salt or drink coconut water to keep your electrolytes balanced. Avoid peak heat and high humidity. If you feel lightheaded, thirsty, or dry afterward, that's not just normal aging. That's your body warning you. Because here's the quiet reality. You can finish a walk feeling refreshed, fall asleep proud of your discipline, and wake up unable to speak, move, or recognize your loved ones. That's how quickly a stroke can strike when we ignore the subtle signs. And if something as gentle as a walk can leave your brain vulnerable, imagine what might happen with a movement you've done since childhood, one that twists the neck or arches the spine, but under the wrong conditions, could tear open the arteries feeding your brain. Up next, we'll talk about a small stretch millions of older adults do every day, and how that innocent motion might be the one that threatens your lifeline. 6. Neck circles or jerky neck rotations, the hidden artery tear. It's one of the most commonly suggested stretches for older adults. Loosen up that neck, they say. So you tilt side to side, maybe make a slow circular motion with your chin. It feels easy, maybe even relaxing, especially after a stiff night's sleep or a long session in your favorite chair. But here's what no one ever told you, and what I've sadly seen too many seniors suffer from. This simple, seemingly harmless motion can cause a tear in one of the most fragile and critical arteries in your body, the vertebral artery. And for someone over 60, that small tear could be all it takes to unleash a stroke that changes everything. The vertebral arteries run deep inside your neck. They thread through small channels in your spine, delivering blood to the back of your brain, the region that controls balance, coordination, and even basic awareness. These arteries are not meant to be pulled or twisted aggressively, but each time you roll your neck in a wide circle, especially quickly or with force, you stretch those vessels beyond what they're built to handle. One sharp move or repeated strain can cause a tear in the artery's inner wall. Once the body senses this damage, it rushes to respond by building a clot to seal the tear. But that clot can dislodge, and when it does, it forms emboli that travel straight to the brainstem. That leads to what's called a posterior circulation stroke, often difficult to detect and often devastating. One patient who comes to mind is Mr. Dennis Lyle, 72, a retired band director from Michigan. A warm, thoughtful man, active in music and devoted to keeping his body flexible. He had read in a senior magazine that neck rolls were great for spinal alignment. So every morning, after brushing his teeth, he'd gently rotate his head, first clockwise, then counterclockwise. But one day, halfway through a slow circle, he felt a sharp pain behind his ear. Dizziness followed. Then he collapsed in his hallway. By the time emergency crews arrived, Dennis was disoriented, couldn't speak clearly, and had vomited multiple times during the ambulance ride. Scans confirmed a vertebral artery dissection, a tear on the left side, and a resulting stroke near the cerebellum. Just as I feared, the clot had moved fast. Dennis now uses a wheelchair. He still plays music, slowly, carefully, but he told me later, "I never imagined something that gentle could flip my life upside down." That's the risk. These injuries aren't loud. There's no explosion of pain. You might hear a pop or feel a brief wave of nausea, a dizzy spell, and by the time you realize something's wrong, the damage may already be in motion. As we age, our blood vessels lose flexibility. Some medications, like blood thinners or statins, can make those vessel walls even more delicate. A motion you once did without thinking at 40 could become dangerous by 70. So here's what I need every older adult to know. Stop doing full neck rolls. Avoid quick or jerky head turns. Never stretch your neck to its edge. Instead, move your head slowly, side to side, only within a natural, supported range. And if you ever feel lightheaded, unbalanced, or hear a sudden click or snap in your neck, stop right away. Get it checked. Your neck isn't just there for posture. It's a passageway for blood that keeps your brain alive. Treat it like the lifeline it truly is, Nate, because your life could depend on it. And if something this slow and soothing can trigger a stroke, what happens when seniors are encouraged to push their hearts with fast-paced exercise trends? Coming up next, we'll break down a popular fitness routine sweeping through senior apps and wellness programs, and why it may be quietly harming the very organ you're trying to protect. 7. High-intensity interval training, Koreer Chait. When fitness pushes too far. There's a rising trend making its way through senior gyms, online workout videos, and even insurance-backed wellness programs. High-intensity interval training, better known as HIIT. It's pitched as a quick fix, short bursts of effort followed by brief rest, promising to boost your heart, burn calories, and keep your metabolism young. But what those glowing promotions won't mention is this. For adults over 60, HIIT can silently strain your heart and blood vessels to a dangerous degree, raising your risk of stroke, irregular heart rhythms, and irreversible brain injury. On the surface, it sounds efficient. 30 seconds of fast movement, like stepping in place, mini squats, or light jumping jacks, then a short break, then repeat. But inside the aging body, especially one with stiffened arteries or underlying health issues like hypertension or diabetes, those spikes in activity can become hazardous. Every intense burst sends your heart rate soaring, your blood pressure climbing, and your circulation system scrambling to keep up. In a younger person, these surges are absorbed easily. But in older adults, that sudden vascular strain can injure the inner lining of blood vessels, the endothelium, responsible for maintaining steady blood flow. If that lining becomes inflamed or cracks, it creates an opening for plaque to rupture. And when that happens, the body tries to protect itself. It forms a clot. But if that clot travels to the brain, the result can be devastating, a stroke that robs you of speech, movement, or memory in the blink of an eye. One case I'll never forget. Mr. Donald Whitaker, 74, a retired steelworker from Pittsburgh. He was proud of staying active, always did things by the book, and was eager to maintain his health after retirement. His daughter gave him a senior-friendly HIIT DVD with upbeat routines. Each morning, Donald followed along, step touches, arm pumps, even low-impact burpees. It felt intense, but doable, until one day it wasn't. After a 20-minute workout, he walked to the kitchen to brew coffee. Within minutes, he felt dizzy, dropped the mug, and collapsed against the counter. His wife rushed in and found him unable to speak or move. At the hospital, scans confirmed a left brain ischemic stroke. A clot had broken free from his carotid artery, likely triggered by a pressure surge during one of those intense bursts. His vessels, already worn by age and unrecognized hypertension, couldn't absorb the stress. Donald survived, but his life changed overnight. He now lives in assisted care, attends speech therapy, and battles memory issues that didn't exist before. He once told me with a heavy voice, "Doc, I thought I was doing the right thing. I just wanted to keep going." And that's the heartbreaking part. His intention was good, but his body couldn't tolerate the intensity. Here's what I want every older adult to understand. Aging doesn't mean you're fragile, but it does mean your limits are different. Your arteries don't bounce back like they used to. Your brain requires consistent, steady oxygen flow, not dramatic fluctuations. HIIT may sell itself as a fountain of youth, but if it overloads your system, it can steal your future in seconds. If you've been trying high-speed routines and noticed dizziness, fatigue, or breathlessness after, don't dismiss it. That's not growth. That's a signal. Switch to exercises designed for longevity. Brisk walks, slow resistance work, gentle yoga, or Tai Chi. Activities that support the heart and nourish the brain without shock or strain. Because in this stage of life, consistency is strength, calm is power, and sudden, intense effort is not your ally. It's your risk. And if you think intense workouts are the only place this danger hides, consider this. What if something as basic as stretching, done at the wrong moment, was putting silent pressure on your blood vessels? Up next, we'll explore a popular pre-exercise routine that may be quietly undermining your arteries before your workout even begins. 8. Stretching before warming up. The shock to your blood vessels, we've heard it for decades. Stretching is good for you. It improves flexibility, helps blood flow, and lowers injury risk. So it's no surprise that many seniors start their day or their walk with a few long stretches. Arms to the sky, calves against the wall, a reach for the toes. It feels calm, familiar, even wise. But for aging bodies, a stretching cold muscles before warming up can quietly do the opposite. And in some cases, it can trigger the first ripple in a chain reaction that ends in a stroke. Let me explain what's happening inside. When your muscles are still cold, meaning you haven't moved or walked around, your blood vessels remain constricted. Your heart beats slower. Circulation is centered around your core. Then, with one long hamstring pull or deep shoulder stretch, you suddenly demand that your vessels expand. But they're not ready. And in older adults, where arteries may be hardened, narrowed, or stiffened with age, that sudden pull becomes a shock. It sends the vascular system into reflex mode. Some arteries clamp down, others swell with pressure, blood flow becomes uneven, and pressure builds in ways your body can't immediately adjust for. In younger people, this corrects itself quickly. But if you're over 60, and especially if you're managing high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease, this instability in blood flow can be risky. The turbulence can stress vessel linings and prompt clot formation. And those clots, they often go straight to the brain. I remember Mrs. Eileen Granger, 78, a retired piano teacher from Colorado. One morning before her daily walk, she followed a YouTube stretching video, a gentle senior routine. She held a forward bend, followed by thigh stretches and shoulder circles. She hadn't moved around yet, hadn't even had her morning water. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she told me later. But partway through her walk, she became unsteady. Her steps wobbled. A neighbor spotted her looking confused. By the time help arrived, Eileen couldn't form full sentences. At the hospital, scans showed a small ischemic stroke in her left parietal lobe. Her blood tests indicated dehydration and vascular strain. We traced it to the static stretches done on a cold body. Her vessels hadn't warmed. The sudden force likely triggered the clot. She survived, but recovery was slow. Her memory returned, but she now walks with support and avoids walking alone. Her stroke didn't come from neglect or recklessness. It came from following good advice, just done in the wrong order, stretching muscles that weren't warm, asking blood vessels to open up before they were ready. So here's the key takeaway. If you're over 60, never start your day or your activity with deep static stretches. Instead, warm up gently, walk around the house, move your arms in circles, breathe deeply. Let your circulation come alive naturally. Stretching is still important, but only after your body is awake. Because when you stretch cold muscles, you're also tugging on the very arteries that supply your brain. And if those tear, clot, or shut down, you might not notice until it's too late to speak, to walk, or to remember why you stretched in the first place. And if something as basic as a stretch can put your brain at risk, Imagine what happens when your balance is off entirely, when your body gives way and the floor is suddenly closer than you expected. In the next section, we'll dive into a surprisingly risky practice, unsupported balance training, and how it may be quietly placing seniors just one slip away from permanent injury. 9. Balancing exercises without support, the hidden fall stroke. Link among the exercises often recommended to seniors, balance training usually feels like the safest. It's said to prevent falls, strengthen the core, and support independence. And that's true when it's done the right way. But what most older adults don't realize is that performing balance movements without proper support or oversight can quietly start a chain reaction that leads not just to injury, but to a stroke. Let me explain why. As we get older, the systems that help us stay upright, like the inner ear, vision, muscle coordination, and joint control, start to decline. A wobble that wouldn't matter at 40 can send you crashing at 75. And while exercises like standing on one foot or using a balance disc might sound like a fun challenge, doing them solo without holding onto something sturdy creates a real risk window. One slip, one moment of instability, and you could fall. But the danger doesn't stop at the fall itself. That's just where it begins. When a senior falls, especially hitting the head, back, or hip, the body immediately enters a state of stress. It floods the system with stress hormones, tightens blood vessels, and begins the process of clot formation. This response is automatic. It's the body's way of protecting you from internal bleeding, but it's also what can quietly lead to stroke. Even when no bones are broken, trauma from the fall can trigger the production of clots. If one of those clots travels to the brain, the result can be devastating. That's what I call the fall stroke loop. The fall causes clotting, and the clot causes a stroke. Sometimes hours later, sometimes overnight. One case I'll never forget. Mr. Walter Harris, 81, a retired Navy veteran from San Diego. He lived alone and prided himself on staying in shape. One morning, inspired by an online video, he decided to try standing on one leg for 30 seconds, without using any support. There was no chair, no wall within reach. His foot caught the rug. He toppled sideways and bumped his shoulder and lightly struck his head on the table. I wasn't even hurt, he told me later, just embarrassed. But that night, everything changed. Walter woke up disoriented. His right arm was numb, and he couldn't finish a sentence. At the hospital, we found a clot lodged in his left middle cerebral artery, likely a result of inflammation caused by the fall. There was no brain bleed, no visible trauma, but the stress to his system had been enough to trigger clot formation and send it straight to his brain. Walter made it through, but with consequences. He now sees a speech therapist regularly, struggles with memory, and needs help getting dressed in the morning. He once told me, if I could go back and do that same balance move, but with my hand on a chair, I would. So here's what you need to know. Balance exercises are important, but only when done safely. Always stand near something sturdy, like a counter or chair. Never train on slippery floors or in socks. If you're uncertain, start with gentler alternatives. Seated posture drills or heel-to-toe walking beside a wall. The goal isn't to test your limits blindly, it's to build resilience wisely. Because the danger isn't just falling, it's what happens after. It's the silent storm that trauma can trigger inside your body. You may not feel it that day. You may not see the symptoms until the stroke wakes you in the middle of the night, after your brain has already lost its defenses. And now that we've uncovered 9 common exercises that might be risking your health, each one with the best of intentions, you may be asking, what now? What movement is safe? What truly helps without putting me in harm's way? In the final reflection, I'll show you how to move forward, literally. You'll learn how the right exercises, done in the right way, can sharpen your mind, steady your feet, and help you stay independent for years to come. Final reflection. The truth about movement, aging, and protecting your brain. If you've made it to the end, I want to start with something sincere. It means you care. You care deeply about your health, your independence, and the people who rely on you. You're willing to face uncomfortable truths to protect what matters most. That's not the kind of strength you find in a gym. It's the kind built through decades of experience, resilience, and the courage to shift direction when you realize the path you trusted may no longer serve you. Together, we've walked through 9 familiar exercises, each done with good intentions, and uncovered how, when mismatched with the realities of aging, they can quietly create real danger. Whether it's toe touches, hit routines, or neck rolls, these movements aren't bad in themselves, but they become risky when the body performing them is no longer the same body that once could bounce back without a second thought. And here's the truth that too many people never hear. Aging changes the rules. Your vessels stiffen. Your blood pressure doesn't regulate as swiftly. Your brain, more vulnerable now, reacts to drops in oxygen, changes in sugar levels, dehydration, and inflammation in ways it never did before. What felt healthy at 45 can, at 75, trigger a silent chain of events that ends in a stroke. And once that happens, life takes a different shape. As someone who's treated thousands of stroke patients, I've seen it firsthand. People who were active, thoughtful, and well-informed walk into my clinic full of life and return weeks later in a wheelchair, struggling to speak or remember loved ones. I've witnessed the heartbreak of spouses who never imagined they'd become caretakers. I've watched proud, independent people have to relearn how to hold a spoon, how to dress, how to find their words again, and I've heard the same words repeated time and time again. I didn't know. I thought I was doing everything right. That's why I'm here. Not to frighten you, but to shine a light on what often goes unseen. Because it's not fear that protects us. It's understanding, it's awareness, and it's never too late to change the way you move forward. So what's next? If these common movements carry risk, what's safe? How can you continue to move without putting your brain in harm's way? Here's the first thing to remember. Movement is not the problem. Uninformed movement is. You don't need to stop being active. You need to become more intentional. Tune in to what your body needs now, not what it could handle 10 or 20 years ago. You are not breakable, but you are different. Your exercise should honor that. And now I'd love to hear from you. Which part of this message hit home for you most? What's one change you feel ready to make to protect your brain and your future? Let's walk this new, wiser path together. Your brain is worth protecting. So are you. These lessons are here to empower you, to help you move forward with confidence. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you're going to do differently from this day on. We're all learning together. If this video spoke to you, drop a 1 in the comments. If not, go ahead and type 0 to let us know how we can improve. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Senior Health Topics for more videos like this. Thank you for being here. And here's to moving through life with strength, wisdom, and purpose.